The communication room on the Galactic Council station fell silent. Ambassador stared at the holographic display showing another star system going dark. That made 7 systems in just 3 months. 7 civilizations wiped out by the swarm. Her hands trembled as she pulled up the casualty numbers. Billions dead. Entire planets stripped of all life, their resources consumed by the endless hunger of the raiders. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on to the next world. Belonged to the species, a race of gentle diplomats who had never known war on there. Her people solved conflicts through discussion and compromise. The same was true for most of the Galactic Council. The Quinn were scholars who spent their lives in libraries. There were traders who believed every problem could be solved with the right deal. None of them had ever built weapons meant to kill. "Ambassador, we need to evacuate the outer colonies," said her aide, a young Quinn named. His 4 eyes blinked nervously. "The defense fleet can't hold them back anymore." Looked at the tactical map. Red markers showed positions. Blue markers showed Council forces. There was far too much red and not nearly enough blue. Their ships weren't designed for combat. They had light shields and basic energy weapons meant to disable, not destroy. Against the bioships with their acid projectiles and swarming tactics, the Council fleet was like paper facing fire. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" asked, though she already knew the answer. 6 weeks, maybe 7 if we're lucky." Lucky, what a strange word to use when facing extinction. Pulled up a classified file that had been sitting in the Council archives for 2 years. First contact report. Species 7C, Planet Earth, Sector 7. She had read it a dozen times, and each time it made her more uncomfortable. The survey team had been clear in their assessment. Earth was a Class 12, one of the harshest environments ever recorded. Gravity 1.3 times galactic standard, extreme temperature variations, violent weather patterns including hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions were common. The oceans were filled with predators. The land had predators too. Even the plants could kill you. And somehow, intelligent life had evolved there. The humans, as they called themselves, had not only survived their nightmare world but thrived on it. They had built cities, developed technology, and reached their own moon using chemical rockets. The survey team's recommendation had been immediate quarantine. Humans were too aggressive, too warlike, too dangerous to join the Galactic Council. But now, staring at the red tide of markers spreading across the map, made a decision that would change galactic history. "Send a distress call to Earth," she said quietly. His eyes went wide. "Ambassador, they're classified as a prohibited contact species. The Council regulations." "The Council regulations won't matter if we're all dead." His voice cracked. She took a breath and steadied herself. "Send the message. Include all tactical data on the tell them we need help." The message traveled through the quantum communication network, crossing light years in seconds. It reached Earth's orbital stations, where it was immediately flagged as high priority and routed to military command. Captain was reviewing supply reports when the alert came through. He was a career officer in the Earth Defense Force, a man in his 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair at his temples. He had fought in the Unification Wars, the bloody conflicts that had finally brought Earth's nations together under one banner. He knew what war looked like. But this message described something he had never seen before: an alien species calling for help, an entire galactic civilization on the brink of collapse. Took the report directly to Fleet Admiral Dong-ho. The Admiral's office overlooked the construction yards where Earth's warships were built. Through the window, could see a dozen vessels in various stages of assembly. Dong-ho stood at that window now, his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. He was an older man in his 60s, with scars on his face from battles fought decades ago. "Sir, we've received a communication from an alien government," said. "They're requesting military aid." Dong Ho turned slowly. Show me. Activated the holographic display. The tactical situation appeared in the air between them. Dong Ho studied it in silence for a long moment. His expression never changed, but saw his jaw tighten. How many ships are they asking for? Dong Ho asked. They didn't specify, sir. Just asked for whatever aid we could provide. And what do you think we should send, Captain? Had prepared for this question. A cruiser squadron, sir. Maybe 20 ships, enough to show good faith and provide tactical support. Dong Ho shook his head. No. Sir. They called us, Captain. They quarantined contact with us because they were afraid of how violent we are. Now they're desperate enough to ask us for help anyway. Dong Ho pointed at the casualty figures. 7 billion dead in 3 months. These don't stop until everything is consumed. So if these aliens want help from, we're going to show them exactly what that means. Dong Ho walked to his desk and activated the communication system. This is Fleet Admiral Dong Ho to all EDF commands. Full fleet mobilization. I want every warship we have ready to jump in 48 hours. This is not a drill. His eyes widened. Sir, that's 200 ships, the entire fleet. I'm aware of the numbers, Captain. With respect, sir, they asked for aid, not an invasion force. Dong Ho looked at him with tired eyes. They're losing, Captain. They're losing because they don't know how to fight a real war. They've never had to. Their worlds were kind to them. They developed technology for comfort and exploration. He gestured to Earth below them. We didn't have that luxury. Every advancement we made we had to fight for, against our environment, against our predators, against each other. We've been at war for our entire history. That's exactly why the Council fears us, said. Yes, and that's exactly why they need us now. Dong Ho pulled up the star charts showing the route to Council space. Prep the fleet, Captain. We leave in 2 days. Across Earth, military bases burst into activity. Ships that had been in dock for maintenance were rushed through repairs. Weapons systems were tested and loaded. Crews that had been on shore leave were recalled. The massive war machine that was the Earth Defense Force began to move. In orbit, the flagship Indomitable powered up its reactors. The ship was enormous, bristling with missile pods and energy weapons. Its armor could withstand direct nuclear hits. It had been built during the Unification Wars when Earth's nations had fought each other with everything they had. Now it would fight for aliens they had never met. Captain stood on the bridge as his crew ran through final system checks. Around him, holographic displays showed the rest of the fleet assembling. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and support ships. 200 vessels of war, more firepower than any single nation on Earth had ever possessed. Captain, we're receiving a message from Admiral Dong Ho. His communications officer reported. Put it through. Dong Ho's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, could see the bustle of the Indomitable's command deck. All ships, this is Admiral Dong Ho. In 43 hours we will jump to Council space. We're going to help them fight off an enemy that has killed billions. Some of you are wondering if this is our fight. Let me be clear. It became our fight the moment they asked for help. That's what separates us from the monsters out there. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Dong Ho paused and saw something shift in the Admiral's expression. But understand this, we're not going there to play by their rules. We're going there to win. And when it's over, the galaxy will know exactly what it means to ask for help. Dong Ho out. The transmission ended, turned to his crew. They were young, most of them. They had trained for war but never experienced it. Now they would. You heard the Admiral said, let's show them what humans can do. 48 hours later, 200 Earth warships aligned in formation above the moon. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight, angular and aggressive, built for one purpose: warfare. Admiral Dong Ho gave the order. All ships jump. Space twisted, reality bent, and humanity went to war for the first time in galactic history. Ambassador didn't know what she had unleashed. but she would find out soon enough. The system was dying. Ambassador watched from the bridge of her command ship, the Serenity, as another Quinn destroyer broke apart under fire. The bioship that killed it looked like a massive insect, its hull covered in organic armor that regenerated faster than their weapons could damage it. Acid projectiles sprayed from its mandibles, melting through shields and metal alike. "Pull back to secondary positions," ordered, but even as she said it, she knew it was hopeless. They had them surrounded, 3 ships for every council vessel, and more kept coming through the system's edge, appearing like locusts drawn to crops. "Ambassador, shields at 30%, her tactical officer reported. The officer was his tentacles working frantically across the controls. "We can't take another hit like that." Screen showed the battle unfolding around them. Council ships were trying their best. They fired their energy weapons in precise bursts, aiming for weak points and critical systems. But precision didn't matter when the enemy could heal faster than you could hurt them, and the Council's weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. They had been built for a galaxy that settled disputes with words, not wars. "Evacuation transports are launching from the colony," another officer announced. "Civilian casualties are already in the millions." Millions more, felt the weight of every death pressing down on her. She had sent the call to Earth 3 days ago. Had they even received it? And if they had, would they really help? Humans were quarantined because the Council feared them. Why would they risk their lives for strangers? "Ambassador, sensor readings." The tactical officer's voice rose in alarm. "Multiple FTL signatures. Something's jumping into the system." His heart sank. This was the end. But then the signatures resolved, and her screen filled with new contacts. Her breath caught in her throat. Ships, dozens of them. No, not dozens, hundreds. 200 contacts, all emerging from faster-than-light travel in a perfectly coordinated formation. And they weren't bioships. These vessels were angular and brutal, covered in armor plating that looked excessive. Weapon systems bristled from every surface. These weren't exploration vessels. These were warships. Human warships. "This is Earth Defense Force flagship Indomitable to Council vessels. We received your call." The voice was calm, speaking perfect galactic common through the translation system. "Where do you need us?" Struggled to find her voice. "Admiral Dongho, you came. You asked for help. Now tell me where the enemy is." Quickly transmitted the tactical data. "They have us surrounded, 3-to-1 advantage. Our shields are failing and—" "Understood." Dongho's voice cut through her explanation. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Dongho, weapons free. Show them what happens when you anger." The human fleet didn't wait for them to react. They moved forward like a wall of steel and fury. Commander commanded the destroyer Wrath from her captain's chair. She was 32 years old, with sharp features and eyes that had seen combat during the Pacific Liberation. She studied the tactical display, watching the bioships cluster around the Council vessels like predators around wounded prey. "Target the nearest group," she ordered. "Fire when ready." The Wraths opened fire. Unlike the energy weapons the Council used, were simple and brutal. They accelerated metal slugs to a significant fraction of light speed and hurled them at the enemy. The physics did the rest. The first bioship never had time to regenerate. The slug punched through its organic armor and kept going, tearing through its internal structure before exploding out the other side. The ship died instantly. "Missile pods 1 through 6 launch," commanded. Dozens of missiles streaked from the Wrath's hull. They didn't aim for weak points or try to disable. They simply flew straight into the formation and detonated. Fire bloomed in the void. More bioships died. "Target destroyed," her weapons officer reported, acquiring new targets. "Fire at will," said. "Don't stop until they run or they're all dead." The battle changed in minutes. Where Council ships fought defensively, trying to protect themselves while slowly whittling down the enemy, Human ships fought with overwhelming aggression. They pushed forward into the formations, weapons firing continuously. When shields took damage, they didn't pull back. They kept advancing. Lieutenant led his fighter squadron from the carrier Retribution. He was 26, young by military standards, but he had trained his entire adult life for combat. His fighter was small and fast, armed with missiles and kinetic cannons. "Gold Squadron, follow my lead," he said over the communication system. "We're going straight through them." "Sir, that's suicide," one of his pilots protested. "No, that's tactics, trust me." Accelerated his fighter to maximum speed and dove into the formation. His sensors screamed warnings as bioships turned to engage him. Acid projectiles filled the space around him, but had trained for this. He spun his fighter through a corkscrew pattern, dodging by centimeters while his squadron followed. Missiles away. Gold Squadron released their payload. 30 missiles, all targeting the same bioship. The massive vessel tried to regenerate, but there was too much damage. It broke apart, spilling organic matter into the void. Pull up, Swingman shouted. Didn't pull up. He aimed his fighter directly at another bioship and fired his kinetic cannons. The shells ripped through the organic armor. Then, at the last second, jerked his stick and rolled past the bioship, so close that his shield scraped against its hull. His wasn't so lucky. It flew straight into the bioship's weak point and detonated. The explosion tore the vessel in half. "One fighter traded for a capital ship," reported. "Acceptable." Back on the Serenity, watched in shock as the human tactics unfolded. They were trading losses for kills, accepting damage that would make Council commanders retreat. One human destroyer took a direct hit that collapsed its shields and tore through its armor. But instead of pulling back to repair, it rammed forward and detonated its entire missile magazine at point-blank range. The destroyer died. So did 3 bioships. They're insane," whispered beside her. "No," said quietly. "They're warriors, real warriors. We've never seen anything like this because we've never needed to be like this." The swarm was beginning to break. They had never faced prey that fought back with this level of violence. Their tactics relied on overwhelming numbers and regeneration, but human weapons didn't give them time to heal, and human ships kept coming, kept firing, kept killing. Admiral Dong Ho watched the battle from the Indomitable's bridge. Captain stood beside him, calling out status reports. Destroyer Wrath reporting 70% combat effectiveness. 3 frigates damaged but still operational. Fighter Squadron Gold has lost 4 birds but inflicted heavy casualties. "Acceptable losses," Dong Ho said. "Order the second wave to push their left flank. I want them surrounded." "Sir, they outnumber us." "Numbers don't matter when you're fighting scared." Dong Ho pointed at the tactical display. "Look at their formation. It's collapsing. They're trying to retreat." Looked and saw that the Admiral was right. The bioships were pulling back, trying to regroup, but the human fleet gave them no room to breathe. Destroyers and cruisers pressed forward. Fighters harried their flanks. Missile barrages filled the space between ships. "All vessels pursue and destroy," Dong Ho ordered. "No mercy. They showed none to the Council worlds. We show none to them." The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it finally ended, the system was littered with debris. Council ships, bioships, and yes, human vessels too. But the difference was clear. The Council had lost 30 ships and was on the verge of total collapse. They had lost over 100 bioships. And humanity had lost 4 destroyers and 2 frigates. 4 ships, 200 crew members dead. It was the first time in the war that they had retreated. Received the communication request from Admiral Dong Ho and accepted immediately. The Admiral's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but calm. "Ambassador, the system is secure. We're conducting search and rescue for survivors." "Admiral, thank you, you saved us, you saved billions." His voice shook. "But your tactics, the casualties, you lost ships, you lost people." 4 ships, Dong Ho confirmed. 200 crew. Their sacrifice saved your worlds. That's what soldiers do, Ambassador. We fight so others don't have to. 200 people died today because we asked for help. 200 volunteered to help people they'd never met. That's the difference between us and the... We choose to fight for something bigger than ourselves. Dong Ho paused. But I need you to understand something, Ambassador. This is what war looks like when you're trying to win. It's brutal. It's bloody. And yes, people die. We accept that because the alternative is extinction. Looked at the tactical display, at the debris fields and the damaged ships. The Council has never fought a war like this. I know that's why you're losing, but now you have us. Dong Ho's expression hardened. We'll help you win this war, Ambassador, but you need to let us fight it our way. Can you do that? Thought of the billions dead. The world stripped bare. The enemy that showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. And she thought of the humans who had crossed the stars to help strangers, who had fought and bled and died for people they didn't know. Yes, Admiral, I can do that. Good, then let's plan our next move, because we'll be back, and next time we need to be ready. The communication ended. Sat in her captain's chair, surrounded by her exhausted crew. The battle was over. They had survived. But as she looked at the human fleet maintaining position in the system, their weapons still hot from combat, she realized something that chilled her to her core. The galaxy had called for help from, and had answered with fire and fury. There was no going back now. The Council had unleashed something they didn't fully understand. But perhaps thought that was exactly what they needed to survive. The human fleet stayed in the system for 2 weeks, integrating with Council forces. That's when the real culture shock began. Medical officer worked in the Indomitable's medical bay when the first Council delegates came aboard for a diplomatic meeting. She was checking supply inventories when Ambassador and her aide arrived early, before the scheduled tour. They wandered into the medical section by accident. Looked up from her computer pad and smiled. Can I help you? Stared at the medical bay with wide eyes. This is your medical facility. Yes, is something wrong? It's so minimal. 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Where are the regeneration tanks, the cellular rebuilding systems, the gene therapy stations? Glanced around the medical bay. It had surgical equipment, diagnostic scanners, medicine storage, and standard treatment beds. Everything a ship needed. We don't have those things. We use surgery and medicine. Surgery? You mean cutting into bodies? Looked horrified. Yes, how else would we fix internal injuries? We use targeted cellular manipulation. No cutting required. Pulled up data on his pad. According to our records, human childhood survival rate is only 95%. That's catastrophic. Blinked, 95% is catastrophic. Our survival rate is 99.8%. Anything lower than 99 is considered a medical emergency, requiring immediate intervention. Oh, thought about Earth, where childhood diseases, accidents, and natural disasters meant that not every child reached adulthood. I guess our world is harsher than yours. We lose more people, but that also means we have more people. Earth has 12 billion humans. How many are there? 3 billion across all our colonies. We have 4 times your population on one planet, said it matter-of-factly, but she saw the shock on their faces. Our world is dangerous. More of us die, but more of us are born too. That's how you survive on a numbers. Later that day, Chief Engineer Wu caused a diplomatic incident. Wu was 45, built like a wrestler, with grease permanently under his fingernails from decades of working on ships. He had been asked to inspect a damaged cruiser and provide recommendations for repairs. When he beamed aboard the cruiser Harmony, he immediately frowned. The ship was beautiful, graceful curves, artistic design, large windows showing the stars, comfortable crew quarters. It was also barely armored. Where's your armor plating? Wu asked the engineer, showing him around. We have structural reinforcement throughout the hull, 6 centimeter composite materials. 6 centimeters. Wu pulled up the ship's specifications on his pad. Your shields are strong, but once they fail, you have nothing. One good hit and this ship is gone. Our shields rarely fail, and our ships are designed for efficiency, not warfare. Well, you're in a war now. Wu studied the hull design. You need at least 3 meters of ablative armor, layered plating that can absorb impacts, and these windows. He gestured at the beautiful viewports. Structural weaknesses, seal them up. Use cameras and screens. 3 meters of armor would add significant mass. Our engines couldn't handle it, and the windows are essential for crew morale. Know what's bad for crew morale? Dying because your ship can't take a hit. Wu pulled out his tools. I'm making modifications. You can file a complaint with Admiral Dong Ho if you want. The engineer did file a complaint. Dong Ho read it and sent a response. Engineer Wu's recommendations are approved. All council ships working with human forces will undergo defensive upgrades. If you want to survive this war, your ships need to look less like art galleries and more like warships. They were offended, but they also noticed that the Harmony, after Wu's modifications, survived 3 separate encounters with only minor damage. Ships without the modifications weren't so lucky. The real revelation came during a tactical briefing in the Council's war room. Representatives from all Council species attended, along with the human command staff. Tactical Officer Bora presented humanity's military history. Bora was 38, with sharp eyes and a teacher's patience. She stood before the holographic display and pulled up Earth's timeline. This is Earth's recorded history over the last 10,000 years, she said. The timeline filled with markers. Red markers, thousands of them. Each red marker represents a major conflict. Wars between nations, tribes, city-states, empires. The council representatives stared in horror. The markers were so dense that parts of the timeline appeared solid red. You've been fighting each other for 10,000 years, a Quinn scholar asked, his voice shaking. Longer, actually. These are just the recorded conflicts. Archaeological evidence suggests warfare goes back at least 40,000 years. Bora zoomed in on recent centuries. In the 20th century alone, we fought 2 global wars. The second one killed 70 million humans. 70 million stood up from her seat. That's more than the population of most council worlds, and you killed each other. Yes, we've always been good at killing. Bora pulled up weapon designs, stone axes, bronze swords, crossbows, cannons, rifles, tanks, nuclear weapons. Every technological advancement we made, we turned into a weapon, not always immediately but eventually, because someone always wanted what someone else had, territory, resources, power, and the way to get it was through force. But why? Asked. Why not negotiate? Why not compromise? We did those things too, but when they failed, we fought. Because on Earth, if you didn't fight, you died. Our world didn't give us a choice. Bora changed the display to show Earth itself. The council representatives saw the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the volcanoes. They saw predators hunting prey. They saw humans struggling against their environment. Most of you evolved on what we call garden worlds. Stable climates, abundant resources, few natural disasters. Your evolution was shaped by cooperation because your worlds were kind enough to allow it. Bora gestured at Earth. We didn't have that luxury. Our world tried to kill us every day, so we learned to fight, to adapt, to survive no matter what. And when we ran out of environmental threats to fight, we fought each other. Admiral Dong Ho stepped forward. This is why we're good at war, Ambassador. It's not because we're evil or cruel. It's because we had to be good at it to survive. 10,000 years of constant warfare taught us things you never needed to learn. Strategy, tactics, logistics, weapon design, how to kill efficiently and how to protect ourselves from being killed. But the cost, said quietly, all those deaths. Yes, war is terrible. It destroys lives and civilizations. We know this better than anyone because we've experienced it for. Dong Ho's voice was grave. But knowing war is terrible and knowing how to fight a war are two different things. You called us because you're losing. You're losing because your species evolved to solve problems peacefully. They didn't. They evolved on a world that taught them to consume or be consumed. So now you have two choices: learn to fight the way we do or accept extinction. The room was silent. Finally, a trade minister spoke up. If we follow your methods, don't we become like the violent, cruel? No, said Captain from the back of the room. He was a Marine commander and experienced. The attack because it's their nature. They consume without thought. We fight because we choose to. We fight to protect. That difference matters. Does it? The minister challenged. You still kill. Yes, but we can also stop. We can show mercy. We can make peace. Stepped forward. They can't. That's why they're the enemy and we're your allies. We're capable of violence, but we're also capable of restraint. That's what you need. Not just killers, but warriors who know when to fight and when to stop. Bora pulled up a new tactical display. This is our proposed strategy for the war. We don't wait for them to attack. We take the fight to them. Hit their supply lines. Destroy their breeding worlds. Force them to retreat through sheer overwhelming force. That's genocide, said horrified. That's war, Dong Ho corrected. They started this by wiping out 7 of your star systems. 7 billion dead. They showed no mercy. If we show mercy now, they'll interpret it as weakness and keep attacking. You have to hit them so hard they have no choice but to stop. I can't authorize genocide. Then you're sentencing your own people to death. Dong Ho's voice was harsh but not unkind. I understand your position, Ambassador. Your species was raised on diplomacy and peace, but sometimes the moral choice and the necessary choice aren't the same. You asked for our help. We're telling you what needs to be done. The decision is yours. Looked at the tactical display, showing the positions and projected casualties. She thought of the 7 billion already dead. She thought of her and the billions more who would die if the weren't stopped. If we do this, she said slowly, if we authorize offensive operations against territory, can you guarantee they'll surrender? No, Dong Ho admitted. We can't guarantee anything in war, but I can tell you that every species has a breaking point. They have conquered easily because no one fought back effectively. Once they realize they're facing an enemy that can match their violence and exceed it, they'll have to make a choice: keep fighting and risk extinction, or retreat and survive. And if they choose extinction, then we give it to them, not because we want to, but because they leave us no choice. Looked around the room at the council representatives. She saw fear in their eyes, fear of the humans, fear of what they were becoming by accepting this help. But she also saw hope. For the first time since the war began, there was a path to victory. It was a dark path, covered in blood and fire, but it led to survival. Admiral Dong Ho said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I grant you operational authority for offensive military operations against the swarm. Your objective is to end the war by any means necessary. Dong Ho nodded slowly. Understood, Ambassador. We'll do what you need us to do, and when this is over, the galaxy will know that keep their promises. As the meeting ended, and the council representatives filed out, approached. Ambassador, do you think we made the right choice? Watched the human officers discussing tactics, their voices calm and professional as they planned operations that would kill millions. I don't know, she admitted, but I know it was the only choice we had. We called for help from, now we have to trust them to be what they are. Let's hope we can live with the consequences. Outside, the human fleet prepared for war, real war, the kind that would change the galaxy forever. The human fleet jumped deep into territory, and the galaxy watched in horror and awe. Commander Gi stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Vengeance as they emerged from faster-than-light travel. Before them lay a breeding world, its surface covered in organic structures that pulsed with life. Thousands of bioships orbited the planet like a swarm of insects protecting their nest. Weapons status, Guy commanded. She was 41, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion, and she had seen enough combat to know that hesitation killed more soldiers than enemy fire. All systems green, nuclear warheads armed and ready. Nuclear warheads. The Council representatives watching from their distant observation posts felt their blood run cold. Nuclear weapons had been banned in galactic civilization for 3,000 years. They were considered too barbaric, too destructive, too dangerous. Humans had never stopped making them. Target the planet's northern continent, Guy ordered. That's where their primary breeding complex is located. Deploy warheads on my mark. Commander, the Council observers are requesting we hold fire, her communications officer said. Tell them to look away if they don't want to watch. Guy studied the tactical display. The bioships were moving to intercept, but they were too slow. All ships, weapons-free, fire. The Vengeance and its support fleet launched their missiles. Not the clean fusion reactors that powered Council technology, but dirty fission weapons designed for one purpose: maximum devastation. The warhead screamed through the atmosphere and detonated across the breeding grounds. Fire bloomed on the planet's surface. Not the precise, controlled destruction of energy weapons, but raw explosive force that turned everything within blast radius into ash. Radiation spread across the continent, killing anything the initial explosions missed. Commander Guy watched the destruction without expression. Primary target eliminated, moving to secondary objectives. Over the next 6 hours, the human fleet systematically destroyed every major facility on the planet. They didn't glass the entire world. They didn't commit total genocide. But they sent a clear message: continue this war, and your species will pay a price you cannot afford. In another system, Captain operated from the shadows. Her stealth ship Shadow was designed for operations the Council didn't even have words for: infiltration, sabotage, assassination. Was 36, small and quick, with eyes that missed nothing. She had trained in Earth's special forces before joining the fleet. Now she used those skills in ways that would give the Council nightmares. We're in position above the command structure, her pilot reported quietly. The Shadow's stealth systems kept them invisible to sensors. Deploy the package, ordered. The package was a biological weapon, not something that killed randomly, but a carefully engineered virus based on modified Earth pathogens. It targeted the specific neural chemistry of queens, the massive creatures that commanded each swarm. The virus didn't kill. It confused. It disrupted their ability to coordinate the swarm. Watched on her monitors as the virus spread through the command center. Within hours, the swarm's coordination fell apart. Ships that normally moved in perfect unity started colliding with each other. Tactical decisions became erratic. Captain, we're receiving strong complaints from Council Command, her communications officer said. They're calling this a war crime. Tell them to file a formal complaint after we win the war, said coldly. She had seen the worlds they destroyed. She had seen the bodies. The Council could judge her all they wanted. She was doing what needed to be done. But humanity's campaign wasn't just about destruction. Intelligence officer operated from the indomitable, conducting psychological warfare in ways the Council had never imagined. Was 33, brilliant, with a degree in. He understood that war wasn't just about killing the enemy. It was about breaking their will to fight. We're broadcasting on all communication frequencies, his technician reported. Good, start the transmission. The broadcast was simple but effective. It showed Earth's military history, videos of human conflicts spanning thousands of years, battles, weapons, destruction on a scale they had never witnessed, and then it showed Earth itself. The hurricanes, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the predators. The message was clear: you evolved to swarm and consume. We evolved to endure and conquer. Your world gave you numbers. Our world gave us fury. Let's see who breaks first." The psychological impact was immediate. They had never faced an enemy that not only matched their violence but exceeded it. For the first time in their history, they felt something they had never experienced before: fear. Admiral Dong Ho coordinated all operations from the Indomitable. He watched the tactical displays showing human forces pushing deeper into territory. The casualties were mounting on both sides, but they were taking significantly more damage. "Admiral, we've received a communication," Captain said. "It's from a colony there, requesting terms." Dong Ho straightened in his chair. "They want to surrender." "It appears so, sir. This is unprecedented. They have never surrendered before." "Show me the message." The holographic display showed a queen, her massive form barely fitting in the frame. When she spoke, the translation system rendered her clicking and chirping into words. "Human fleet, you have proven yourselves stronger. We request cessation of hostilities. What are your terms?" Dong Ho considered carefully. This was the moment he had been working toward: break this will to fight, make them choose survival over expansion. "Open a channel," he ordered. The connection established, Dong Ho faced the Queen directly. "This is Fleet Admiral Dong Ho of Earth Defense Force. You attacked the Galactic Council without provocation. You killed billions. You consumed entire worlds. Why should we accept your surrender?" "Because we are willing to stop. Is that not what you want?" "What I want is assurance that you'll never do this again. Surrender isn't enough. You need to prove you can coexist with other species." "What proof do you require?" "Withdraw all forces to your original 3 systems. Accept Council monitoring stations in your territory. Begin reparations for the worlds you destroyed. And most importantly, accept permanent restrictions on your expansion." Dong Ho's voice was hard. "Break any of these conditions and we'll return. And next time we won't stop until every world is ash." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Finally, she responded. "We accept. We will withdraw. We will submit to monitoring. We choose survival over extinction." "Good choice," Dong Ho said. "Transmit your surrender to all forces. The war ends now." The transmission ended. Captain stared at the Admiral in disbelief. "Sir, the Council representatives are demanding to speak with you. They're upset that we accepted the surrender. They wanted the eliminated entirely." Dong Ho stood from his chair. "Tell them I'll speak with them shortly. First, I need to address the fleet." He opened a general channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral Dong Ho. They have surrendered. Cease offensive operations. Begin search and rescue for survivors, both Council and. We came here to stop a war, not to commit genocide. Remember what separates us from the monsters. We know when to stop." Throughout the fleet, human crews reacted with mixed emotions: relief that the fighting was over, pride that they had won, but also weariness. They had seen what war cost. They had lost friends and comrades. On the destroyer Wrath, Commander sat in her captain's chair and closed her eyes. Her ship had survived, but she had lost 30 crew members in the campaign. 30 names she would remember for the rest of her life. "Commander, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple groups," her tactical officer reported. "What are your orders?" "Stand down weapons. Begin recovery operations. And someone find out if we have any spare food. I bet those are hungry after we destroyed their supply lines." Her crew stared at her in surprise. "Ma'am, you want to feed them." "They surrendered. That means they're not enemies anymore. They're defeated combatants and the laws of war apply. We treat them with the same dignity we'd want if the situation was reversed." Opened her eyes and looked at her crew. "War makes us do terrible things, but peace starts with how we treat the defeated. Remember that." Across human ships, similar conversations took place. Some officers wanted to continue the fight. Some wanted revenge for fallen comrades, but discipline held. Admiral Dong Ho had given the order to stand down, and humans might be warriors, but they were also soldiers who followed orders. Ambassador arrived at the Indomitable 2 days after the surrender. She was accompanied by a full council delegation, and they were furious. "You accepted their surrender," a Quinn representative shouted. "After what they did, they should be eliminated." "No," Dong Ho said calmly. "They should be defeated. There's a difference. They killed 7 billion council citizens. And we killed millions of. We destroyed their breeding worlds. We broke their ability to make war. They're no longer a threat." Dong Ho stood firm. "I was given authority to end the war. I did that. The alternative was exterminating an entire species. We're not doing that." "But justice—" "Justice and revenge aren't the same thing," Dong Ho interrupted. "Yes, the committed atrocities. Yes, they need to be held accountable. That's why we impose terms, monitoring, reparations, restrictions. They'll spend generations making amends, but we're not executioners." Spoke up quietly. The council wanted total victory. The council got total victory. The surrendered unconditionally. "What more do you want?" Dong Ho looked at each representative. "You called us because you needed warriors. We came. We fought. We won. But we're not going to become the very monsters we were fighting against. That's not who we are." "But you used nuclear weapons, biological warfare, psychological attacks." The minister gestured at the reports. "These methods worked," Dong Ho said bluntly. "They were brutal. They were harsh. But they ended the war in weeks instead of years. How many more billions would have died if we'd fought a gentle war? How many council worlds would have fallen?" The council delegation had no answer. Because the truth was uncomfortable, the human methods had worked. The war was over. They were defeated. And the cost, while terrible, was far less than it would have been otherwise. "So what happens now?" asked. "Now we enforce the peace. Human ships will patrol space to ensure compliance. We'll work with council monitors to oversee their demilitarization, and we'll help rebuild the worlds that were destroyed." Dong Ho's expression softened slightly. "War is our specialty, Ambassador, but so is reconstruction. Earth has been destroyed and rebuilt dozens of times throughout our history. We know how to heal after conflict." "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing. You asked for help. We provided it. That's enough." Studied the human admiral. He looked tired, older than his years. The weight of command and the burden of all the decisions he had made showed in his eyes. "Why did you accept their surrender?" she asked quietly. "You could have finished them." "Because that's what separates warriors from butchers," Dong Ho replied. "Yes, I could have ordered the complete destruction of but then what would I be? Just another person using violence as an end in itself. War should be a tool, not a purpose. You fight to protect, not to destroy. And when the enemy surrenders, a true warrior knows to show mercy. Even after everything they did. Especially after everything they did. Because if we become like them, then what was the point of fighting?" Dong Ho turned to look out at the stars. "The galaxy will judge us by our actions here. They'll see that humans are capable of terrible violence, but they'll also see that we're capable of restraint. Both matter." The council delegation left, still uncomfortable with the outcome but unable to argue with the results. The war was over, they were contained, and the galaxy was safe. For now. Captain approached Admiral Dong Ho after the delegation departed. "Sir, do you think they understand?" "No," Dong Ho admitted. "They're still afraid of us, maybe more than before, but they'll learn, and so will the rest of the galaxy." "What will they learn?" "That humans are dangerous, but we're dangerous in defense of others. That's a kind of danger the galaxy needs." 6 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council convened on the Ambassador stood in the Grand Assembly Hall, looking at the gathered representatives of 40 species. The hall was beautiful, with crystalline walls that caught the light of 3 suns. It had been built in a time of peace, designed for diplomatic discussions and cultural exchange. Now it served as a courtroom, where the galaxy would judge humanity. The debate had been fierce for weeks. Some species wanted humans integrated into the council. Others wanted them quarantined again, this time permanently. And a few, led by the Quinn scholars, wanted humanity strictly limited in what they could do in galactic space. Took her position at the central podium. She was now chairwoman of the council, promoted after her predecessor had resigned in shame for letting the threat grow unchecked. The weight of leadership pressed down on her shoulders. "This assembly will come to order," she announced. "We are here to determine the status of humanity in the Galactic Council. Before we vote, we will hear testimony." A Quinn scholar was first to speak. He was old, his skin weathered, his 4 eyes dim with age. "I have studied the human records. Their history is drenched in blood. In the last 500 years alone, they fought 2 global wars, dozens of regional conflicts, and countless smaller battles. They developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet. They are fundamentally violent." A trader spoke next. "The humans used nuclear weapons in our war, biological warfare, tactics that have been banned for. They showed no restraint in their violence." "That's not true," interrupted. "They showed tremendous restraint. When the surrendered Admiral Dong Ho accepted, many in this very council wanted complete extermination. The humans refused. Only because it served their interests," they argued. "They want to appear merciful, so we'll trust them." Or, said quietly, "They refused because mercy is actually part of their character. We invited them here. We saw only their capacity for violence and missed everything else they are." Before the debate could continue, the chamber doors opened. Admiral Dong Ho entered, flanked by Captain and the other human officers. They had been invited to speak in their own defense. Dong Ho approached the podium. He looked around at the 40 species gathered to judge humanity. He had prepared a speech, something diplomatic and measured. But standing there, looking at the fear in their eyes, he decided on truth instead. "You're afraid of us," he said bluntly. "I understand. We're violent, we're aggressive. We've spent our entire history fighting. Every technological advancement we made, we turned into a weapon. Every conflict we resolved, we did so through force when diplomacy failed. You look at our history and see monsters." The chamber was silent. Several representatives nodded. "But here's what you're missing," Dong Ho continued. "We also spent our entire history learning when not to fight, learning when to show mercy, learning when to protect those weaker than us." He gestured to the assembly. "We didn't come here because you offered us anything. You offered us nothing. No trade deals, no technology, no territory. You called us because you were dying and we came anyway. That's who we are." He pulled up a holographic display showing casualty figures. In the 6 months of war, humans lost 18 ships and 3,000 crew members. We didn't have to lose anyone. We could have stayed home, safe on Earth, and let you face the alone. But we crossed the galaxy to help people we'd never met. Does that sound like monsters to you?" A young representative stood. "But the methods you used, the nuclear weapons, the biological warfare, how can we trust species that fight so brutally?" Captain stepped forward. "May I respond, Admiral?" Dong Ho nodded. "Face the assembly. You're right to question our methods, they were brutal. But ask yourselves, what would you have done? They killed 7 billion of your people. They destroyed entire worlds. They showed no mercy. So we fought them the only way that would work, with overwhelming force and aggressive tactics. If we had fought your way with restraint and proportional response, the war would still be going on. More of your people would be dead. So you justify the violence?" "No, I explain it." His voice was firm. "There's a difference between being violent because you enjoy it and being violent because it's necessary. We don't enjoy war. We're good at it because we had to be. But every human here would prefer peace. We just understand that sometimes peace can only be achieved through strength." Commander spoke next. "I lost 30 crew members in the war, 30 people who trusted me to lead them. They died fighting for your worlds. Do you know what my last order to them was? Fight with honor, protect the innocent, and show mercy when you can. That's what human warriors believe. We might be killers, but we're not murderers. There's a difference. The assembly listened. Some looked thoughtful, others remained skeptical. Then Admiral Dong Ho made his final argument. You want to quarantine us? Fine, we'll go back to Earth. We'll stay in our own system, but understand what that means. The next time the galaxy faces a threat you can't handle, and there will be a next time, you'll be alone. No to call. No warriors to protect you. Just yourselves and whatever new horror emerges from the dark. He paused, letting that sink in. Or you can take a chance on us. Accept that we're dangerous but also useful. Let us join the council with full membership. And in exchange, we'll do what we've always done. Protect those who can't protect themselves. Your choice. Dong Ho stepped back from the podium. There was nothing more to say. Either the council trusted humanity or they didn't. The vote took 3 hours. Representatives argued. Factions formed and dissolved. Tempers rose, but finally called for the formal vote. All those in favor of granting humanity full council membership. Hands, tentacles, and various appendages rose throughout the chamber. Counted them carefully. 23 in favor, all those opposed. More appendages rose, 17 opposed. A 2/3 majority, just barely enough. The motion passes. Humanity is granted full Galactic Council membership. Felt relief wash over her. However, there is one condition that the Council insists upon. Dong Ho raised an eyebrow. What condition? Humanity will lead the newly formed Galactic Defense Force. You will be responsible for training Council species in defensive tactics and military operations. The GDF will be commanded by human officers, with Council oversight. Dong Ho glanced at, who looked equally surprised. You want us to lead your military? Who else? Said. We're not warriors, you are. If the taught us anything, it's that the galaxy needs defenders. We'd prefer those defenders be species who know the difference between protection and destruction. That's a lot of responsibility. That's the price of membership. Can you accept? Dong Ho thought about it. Leading the galactic military meant humanity would have enormous power. It also meant enormous responsibility. Every decision would be scrutinized, every action judged. But it also meant they could shape the future of galactic security. We accept, Dong Ho said. Captain will be Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force. Commanders, Gi, and Lieutenant will form his command staff. We'll begin recruitment and training immediately. The assembly erupted in debate again, but the decision was made. Humanity was now part of the Galactic Council, and more importantly, they were now the galaxy's protectors. Later that evening, met privately with Dong Ho in her office. The Admiral looked tired but satisfied. Congratulations, Admiral. You got what you came for. Did I? Dong Ho smiled slightly. I came to help you win a war. I didn't expect to become responsible for galactic security. Neither did we, but here we are. Poured 2 glasses of wine and offered one to Dong Ho. Can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Do you think the Council made the right choice, trusting humanity? Dong Ho sipped the wine and considered carefully. Honestly, no, we're dangerous. We'll always be dangerous. Inviting us into the Council means accepting that danger as part of your civilization. That's a risk. Then why accept the position? Because it's the necessary choice. Right and necessary aren't always the same thing. Dong Ho looked out the window at the stars. The galaxy isn't safe. It never will be. There will always be threats. There were just one. You need someone willing to fight those threats. Someone who understands war well enough to prevent it when possible and win it when necessary. That's us. And you'll use that power responsibly. We'll try, that's all I can promise. We'll make mistakes. We'll have to make hard choices that people won't like. But we'll do it all while trying, genuinely trying, not to become the monsters we're so good at killing. Raised her glass. To the future then, whatever it brings. To the future, Dong-ho agreed. As the Admiral left, stood alone in her office, looking at the lights of the city below. Humanity was now part of the Galactic Council, walked among them. The thought should have terrified her. But instead she felt hope, because when the next threat emerged from the darkness between stars, the galaxy wouldn't face it alone. They had warriors now, dangerous warriors, but warriors who fought for something bigger than themselves. On the human flagship Indomitable, now designated as GDF Command, Captain stood on the bridge with his new staff. They were looking at star charts, planning training programs, discussing defensive strategies. Commander, you'll oversee ground forces training, work with the Marines. Yes, sir, though I should warn you, teaching them to shoot is going to be interesting. Half of them have never held a weapon. Then we start from basics. Turn to Commander Gi. You'll handle naval tactics. The Council ships need complete refits. Already working on designs with Engineer Wu. He's very excited about making their ships less pretty and more functional. Lieutenant spoke up from his station. Sir, we're receiving requests from 17 different species wanting to join the GDF. Apparently, the war impressed them. Good, we'll need the numbers. Study the galactic map. There won't be the last threat. We need to prepare for whatever comes next. Medical officer entered the bridge carrying a data pad. Captain, I've been reviewing Council medical capabilities. They're amazing at preventing injury but terrible at treating combat trauma. We need to establish field hospitals and train their doctors in emergency surgery. Added to the list, said, smiling slightly. Looks like we've got our work cut out for us. Chief Engineer Wu appeared on the communication screen. Captain, I've got 30 Council engineers requesting human training. They want to learn how to build ships that can take a hit, as they put it. Tell them we'll start classes next week. Tactical Officer Bora pulled up threat assessments. Sir, I'm seeing some concerning activity in Sector 9. Unknown ships, possibly pirates taking advantage of post-war chaos. Deploy a patrol squadron. Show them the GDF is operational. Orders flowed. The new organization began to take shape. Humans working alongside 40 different species, teaching them not just how to fight, but why to fight, when to fight, and most importantly, when to show mercy. On Earth, news of the Council membership spread across all 12 billion humans. Celebrations broke out in every city. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something bigger. But in the military academies, in the training centers, in the ships orbiting the planet, the reaction was more measured. Officers and enlisted personnel understood what the membership meant. It meant responsibility. It meant that every time something threatened the galaxy, humans would be the first called to respond. It meant that being was now humanity's burden to bear. In the Indomitable's observation deck, Admiral Dong-ho stood alone, looking at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many species depending on human strength to protect them. It was a heavy weight. Worried, sir, Captain had entered quietly. Always, that's what good commanders do. We worry so our people don't have to. The Council trusts us now. Some of them, others are still afraid. They'll always be afraid. Dong-ho turned to face his captain. But that's okay. A little fear keeps everyone honest. As long as they trust us more than they fear us, we can make this work. And if they stop trusting us, then we prove ourselves again, and again, for as long as it takes. Dong-ho smiled. That's what being a warrior means, Captain. You don't fight just to win. You fight to protect. And when the fighting is done, you prove that you can be trusted with the power you've earned. Sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also necessary. Someone has to do it. Dong-ho looked back at the stars. Might as well be us. As the two officers stood in comfortable silence, the Indomitable's engines hummed to life. The ship began moving, leading the fleet toward their new duties. Behind them, Earth hung in space, beautiful and deadly. the birthplace of warriors who had learned to protect instead of just destroy. The galaxy had called for help from, had answered with a fleet of fury. But more than that, they had answered with honor, discipline, and the wisdom to know that true strength meant knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. It wasn't the ending anyone had expected, but perhaps it was the ending everyone needed. In the void between stars, where threats lurked and dangers waited, the galaxy finally had defenders. Not perfect defenders, not gentle defenders, but defenders who understood that violence was a tool, not a solution. That war was sometimes necessary but never desirable. That the strong had a responsibility to protect the weak. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't the hero the galaxy wanted. They were violent, aggressive, and dangerous. But they were also loyal, honorable, and brave. And in a universe that didn't care about peace, sometimes you needed warriors who did. They had brought their fury, but they had also brought something more important. Hope that even in the darkest times, someone would stand and fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And that was exactly what the universe required.